At this point, you have learned that there are three kinds of nervous organization in animals. One is going to be the basic nerve net of cnidarians. Another one is going to be the radially symmetrical nervous system of echinoderms. And there is also going to be, in bilaterally symmetrical animals, a bilateral nervous system. Of all of the different types of bilaterally symmetrical animals, you can imagine that the most sophisticated, the most complex nervous system is going to be that of vertebrates. And now we're going to be turning our attention to the vertebrate nervous system. It is going to have two subdivisions, which are going to be the central nervous system. Now we're reviewing. We have previously learned that the central nervous system is going to consist of a brain and a central nerve cord in this case, because we're looking at vertebrates and they have a vertebral column, also known as the spine. That nerve cord is going to be known as the spinal cord. And there's also going to be a peripheral nervous system, and that is going to be composed of nerves that are going to be moving from the brain, the base of the brain, and from the spinal cord over to various effector organs of the body. And what I mean by the word effector is an organ that can produce a response under the coordination of the nervous system of the animal. This peripheral nervous system is going to be consisting of nerves and ganglia. Again, let's review. What are nerves and ganglia? Nerves are going to be bundles of axons of many nerve cells, and this bundling allows for a more effective movement of information from one part of the body to the central nervous system, and vice versa, from the central nervous system to the effector organs, those that can produce a response. And there's also going to be ganglia. Ganglia can allow for some of the relaying of information between the nerves of the peripheral nervous system and the central nervous system of the animal. So peripheral nervous system has ganglia and nerves, peripheral nerves. Let's focus for a moment on the central nervous system. The central nervous system develops from the dorsal hollow nerve cord. You may recall that this is one of the four characteristics all chordates have in common. Because the dorsal nerve cord in an embryo is hollow, that hollow nature continues to be seen in the central nervous system of animals. For example, the spinal cord has a narrow central canal where cerebrospinal fluid can move for the purpose of delivering nutrients and also for carrying away wastes. In the brain, there are going to be ventricles, and these ventricles are going to be important because not only are they filled with cerebral fluid, but they're also going to be the ones responsible for producing this important cerebrospinal fluid, which, as I mentioned before, can provide nutrients and can also help with the transporting of hormones from one part of the central nervous system to other parts of the nervous system. Notice how the brain and the spinal cord are going to consist of two regions known as gray matter, and there's also going to be white matter. The gray matter has this type of coloration because what you see mostly here are going to be the bodies of neurons, and there's going to be dendrites and also axons that are not covered by something we call a myelin sheath. And we will see myelin sheaths, for example, in neurons. This is going to be a special form of protein that allows for a more effective conduction of the electric potential along the axon of a neuron. White matter, on the other hand, is going to be mostly bundles of myelinated sheaths that are going to be helping with the receiving information from the body and coordinating the necessary response that would allow an animal to perform their activities. What you notice in the spinal cord is that these are going to be flipped. Usually the white matter is on the outside and the gray matter is going to be more to the inside, and that has to do with the nature of the flow of information from sensory organs over towards the central nervous system. On a central nervous system and also in the peripheral nervous system, you're going to find that neurons are going to be receiving assistance, maintenance, by special cells known as glia. These glial cells or glia are going to have many different functions. For example, there are some radial glia that are going to allow for nerve cells to migrate from the neural crest, where they are being made over to other parts of the body as the animal is developing. That is going to be one of the functions of radial glia. Astrocytes, which you can see actually pictured in this illustration, are going to form a barrier that will prevent the movement of many chemicals, many kinds of materials into the brain, into the cortex of the brain, and that is going to be important. These astrocytes are also going to be performing maintenance functions. Other examples of glia will include the Schwann cells. They're the ones that are producing this myelin sheath in the peripheral nervous system neurons. In the central nervous system, there's going to be oligodendrocytes, the ones that are responsible for producing the myelin sheath that enables, facilitates the movement of electron potentials from one neuron to another. The peripheral nervous system is going to have also two efferent components. Efferent means that it's carrying information away. And you can see what those two are. There's going to be an autonomic nervous system and a motor system. Let's focus first on the motor system. The motor system is going to consist of neurons and nerves, actually, to be precise, that are going to be controlling the action of skeletal muscles. Skeletal muscle tissues are going to be found in the parts of the body and muscles that lead to action, to movement. For example, your arms, your legs, your abdomen, your back are going to have skeletal muscle fibers. Many of those actions controlled by the motor system, nerve cells and nerves of the motor system, are going to be voluntary, conscious activity. For example, if you're listening to my presentation, you're deciding, hey, that will be a good time to begin taking notes, you may purposefully, deliberately grab a pen and aim it in the direction of paper so you can, again, purposefully write the words with the notes you want to take. That is what I mean by a conscious, voluntary activity. Some of the activities controlled by the motor system can also be involuntary. For example, reflexes. Maybe from the corner of your eye, you can see that there is an object coming your direction. Without thinking, you immediately try to duck to evade being hit by the flying object, and you may even put your hands in front of you to prevent being hit by something. So this kind of a reflex to protect yourselves from potential injury is also going to be controlled by nerve cells of the motor system. The autonomic nervous system is going to be dealing mostly with involuntary activities. And what I mean by involuntary is that this is going to be functions of your body about which you are not thinking at all. And it has to do with organs, like hollow organs, and also those organs that are controlled by smooth muscle. For example, the process of digestion. After you eat something, you don't necessarily have to think about digesting the food you took in. And that is because the process of digestion, yes, will be controlled by parts of your peripheral nervous system, but you don't have to be thinking about that. Think, for example, about you feeling cold. Vasoconstriction, which means your vessels are going to constrict to prevent the flow of blood to the skin where you may be losing precious heat. That vasoconstriction is achieved by contractions of smooth muscle, and that is going to be controlled by this autonomic nervous system. Enteric means things that have to do with the stomach. The stomach and the pancreas activity is also being coordinated by the autonomic nervous system. This autonomic nervous system is also going to have two subdivisions. So if you follow the organization here, peripheral nervous system is going to have two efferent components, the autonomic nervous system and the motor system. Now we're focusing on the autonomic nervous system, and that has two subcomponents, which are known as the sympathetic division and the parasympathetic division. The sympathetic division is going to be nerves that are responsible for controlling your activities in a moment of emergency, when you find yourself in a dangerous situation. For example, a car comes out of the corner, you were not anticipating it, and now you have to react quickly, and that is what we call by a fight or flight response. What happens when you are confronted by danger all of a sudden? Your pupils are going to dilate, and that allows more light so you can perceive more in your visual field. Something that will also happen is that your heart rate is going to increase, and you can see that as one of the actions of this sympathetic division. When you are in a situation that is dangerous and you may need to fight to protect yourself, you may also notice that your mouth kind of dries up, and that is because there is an inhibition of the salivary gland, so you're not producing as much saliva and your mouth feels dry. Other reactions are going to include releasing of glucose, so you can make more ATP and have energy to deal with that stressful emergency situation. Now, when you look at this dangerous situation, it's going to go away, and there's potential damage that can happen to your body if you stay in this state of alert, state of fight or flight for a long period of time. Remember that in our body we have something called homeostasis, regulation. And what will help your body go back to a normal, calm situation is going to be the actions of the nerve cells in the parasympathetic division of the autonomic nervous system. These are going to be antagonistic, meaning the parasympathetic division does the opposite. It antagonizes what the sympathetic division of your autonomic nervous system did. For example, after the emergency has passed, now your heart rate is going to slow down. Your salivary glands will begin again releasing saliva. Your pupils are going to constrict. There is going to be also now the need for maybe continuing with digestion if that was interrupted. And so for that reason, while the sympathetic division controls the fight or flight emergency response, the parasympathetic is going to be doing the opposite, leading to a calming, rest and digest type of state. And that is going to be how the bilaterally symmetrical nervous system of vertebrates is going to be organized in general. There'll be a couple more presentations that will be focusing on the brain of humans and also how the different parts of our brain work.